Assalamualaikum and hello. My name is Nur Hidayah binti Rusli, metric number 267828. Today, I will present about an analysis of liquidity risk towards Starbucks Corporation. For the problem issue, Starbucks company want to compete with other coffee restaurants inside the area due to the fact the price are pricey than others. Any other crisis occur because within the next year, the Starbucks plan to close 150 units. They also had faced in 2018 in which the Starbucks has stayed inside the past that some of its weakest locations in areas which are suffering with declining retail traffic. For research objective, the first is to explore the internal factor that impact of liquidity risk. Second, to explore the external factor that impact to the liquidity risk. Third, to explore both of internal and external factor impact to the liquidity risk. For the research questions, the first is there any connection between internal factor against liquidity risk? Second, is there any connection between external factor against liquidity risk? Third, is there any connection between internal and external factor against liquidity risk? For literature review, first is liquidity risk. According to Hamstorm and Tyrrell 1998, liquidity risk arise because sales and outlay are not synchronized. For credit risk, according to Chen and Pan 2012, credit risk is the degree of fluctuation within the price of debt contraction and derivative because of changes inside the underlying credit quality of borrower and counterparties. For the operational risk, in accordance to Basel Committee defines operational risk is as a risky because of lack of value of inner technique, individual and framework or misfortune springing up from outside misfortune. For financial risk, according to Oscar Guzman 2018, financial risk method that the employer does not longer have sufficient money to pay off the debtor and fulfill other monetary responsibility. For research methodology, we use IBM SPSS version 25. We use regression model, linear regression, and the method correlation to run the data within annual report in 2014 until 2018. For the data analysis, we separate between dependence and independence variable, which is liquidity risk as dependent variable and independent variable is internal factor and external factor. So these are the variable that we use in internal factor is ROA, quick ratio, average collection period, debt to income, operational ratio, operating margin, and CG index. For external factor, we use GDP, inflation rate, interest rate, and exchange rate. For finding and analysis, in descriptive statistics, current ratio we use as a dependent variable and the rest is the independent variable. So based on the table, exchange rate has more significant to current ratio, which is the mean and standard deviation are shown in the table. For model summary, we can see at the table for the R squared value is 0.787, which is indicate that these factors show the most higher level of correlation among the variable with the current ratio of Starbucks Corporation. For the ANOVA table, as we can see, this model show that the current ratio is not significant to independent variable of external factor because p-value is more than 0.1 or p-value is 0.567. This show that this model match has no correlation to the study performed on current ratio. So this is no identical significant with the external factor. For the correlation table, based on the table, it shown that the GDP, inflation rate, and interest rate is negatively correlated to the current ratio. All the variable outcome, internal and external factor, are not related to the current ratio. Meanwhile, the exchange rate has show the zero value, which means no correlated to the current ratio, means that none of the variables factor are not significant correlated to the current ratio. This will give impact to the liquidity risk of Starbucks Corporation because then no any variable in both factor are significant to current ratio. Based on the coefficient table, as you can see, this study likely show the no variable significant to the current ratio. The record show that the all internal and external factor have negatively significant to current ratio. It is because the significant value is 0.01, but the more significant is 0.05. Then the record show that internal and external factor no significant to current ratio of the Starbucks Corporation. For discussion of result, this study carry out the regression analysis influence shown in chapter 4 between internal factor and external factor that significant and correlated to the dependent of current ratio. The main purpose of this study to explore the internal and external factor impact of liquidity risk of the Starbucks Corporation. The results shown that the internal and external factor not showing significant to current ratio, but it showed the positively correlated to the current ratio. For this reason, there are enough proof to mention that they have effect the liquidity risk of dependent variable. For conclusion, it shown that liquidity risks are the commonplace risks that Starbucks Corporation confronts throughout the period 2014 until 2018. There is probably a couple of liquidity risks this is looked by way of Starbucks Corporation that is predicted by means of current ratio as an established. Starbucks Corporation has more impact to the business undertaking than internal factor on external factor. The current ratio for the organization overall performance need to be prearranged as a high current ratio is better to meet its duties in the approaching year. So that's all from me. Thank you.